A teenager is abducted while camping with her family. No one believes her mother, who has spent her life talking about witnessing UFOs as a young girl. Does the town take the mom seriously when the daughter disappears? Or is it just another crazy story? And what of the young boy receiving messages through the television?
This is not happening.
Hello and welcome to This Is Not Happening, another X-Files podcast.
You know, when I was a kid, I had this ritual. I'd close my eyes before I walked into my room, because I thought that one day when I opened them, my sister would be there, just lying in bed, like nothing ever happened. You know, I'm still walking into that room every day of my life.
Welcome back, everybody. Tonight we are talking about X-Files Season 1, Episode 4, Conduit, written by Alex Gansa and Howard Gordon. And these guys are going to write a bunch of episodes together, mostly in Seasons 1 through 4. Howard Gordon's going to step up as an executive producer. And this one's directed by Daniel Sackheim, who's directed a total of 5 episodes of The X-Files, and it's going to be his last one for Season 1. What do we think about this one? What are our opening thoughts?
Yeah, I think it ramps up that emotional connection for Mulder and Scully, because we get to see Mulder at his 100% determination. We don't see that all the time, but in this episode, it is the first time, even surpassing the first 2, that he is incredibly determined. And what a better way to do that than to have a young woman be abducted.
It does really speak to his motivation, doesn't it? Like, a woman abducted by aliens. Like, this is where he lives, essentially. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that even though this episode deals with alien abduction, I don't think it's an especially good mythology arc episode.
I agree.
Yeah, I think they're still finding their footing. They're still figuring out what the show's going to be. And I would cast this more as a Monster of the Week episode.
I very much agree with that. In fact, the first season, maybe even into the second season with the mythology, they still were not 100% sure which direction the aliens were going to take. And as the show progresses, obviously they're much more involved with humans than it feels right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're very much working in tandem with humans later on, but right now it's like this is one of those episodes where it's still very good, but they encounter a couple things that make it stand out.
Yeah, and there are going to be a few plot potholes, which they're going to conveniently sidestep in the future. But well, I will harp on that later. I won't harp on that now. Let's dive into the ep. And this one starts with just a night out camping, you know. And as you do, you sleep outside if you're kids, because indoors in a camper trailer it probably is a little smelly.
Mom's probably smoking like a
yeah, she's always smoking. And then we get an earthquake. Tremors, things are falling off the shelves, and the classic shot, of course, of the tremors are first seen in that the coffee
Jurassic
cup.
Park. Anyone?
Yeah, well, they'll steal that later, I suppose. But it works here, and we get into full earthquake mode, and Darlene Morris, our mom, is screaming through it. Goes to see what's happened to her kids. I think she just hears Kevin screaming outside, and I love that the door handle is so hot it burns her hand. That's a nice touch.
And that's something they don't do ever again.
No. The
whole scorching thing. They do the radiation flash, but they don't do like the heat of the abduction.
Well, because they're different aliens, Mike. Because these ones take you into space, whereas so we finally get her outside, and we have young Kevin Morris telling her that Ruby's gone, and we have Darlene screaming Ruby's name into the heavens.
I'd like to have Mike's recurring character actor corner. This is Joel Palmer as Kevin, and we will see him again in his last episode, The Calusari.
Really?
Speaking of ones I missed. Deep Throat. I was watching the episode the other day, even after we've recorded. The motel owner is in at least 3 other episodes.
Does he own motels in those other episodes?
He's
Is his name Quiet Willie?
Quiet Willie's a star now.
Oh, he is.
But yeah, he's in at least a few other episodes.
I have to admit, Calusari is not my fave, so I'm really looking forward to that one. Pretty solid alien abduction open. I think it lays the groundwork pretty heavy for what we're about to see. I will have some thoughts on where to pull out the plot threads on this one, but I won't get into it yet. We got our classic opening credits, and then we're back in the FBI. Scully meeting with Blevins.
Number one, I think this is Blevins' last appearance until season 5, I believe.
Yep.
He's handing Scully a file that Mulder has requested a 302, which means he wants to take a case, and he points out that it's essentially based off of a tabloid.
Yeah, it's a nice
and
touch.
He's not happy about it. He wants to know, is Mulder in his right mind? Is his personal judgment getting in the way of his work? And why he says that is because he draws himself the parallels between this case and his sister.
I like that he hands the file to Scully as if it's a revelation.
Mm-hmm.
And so what that tells us, of course, is that Scully has not betrayed Mulder's confidence and reported back to Blevins, hey, did you know this guy's sister was abducted?
Right.
So again, that's what we infer from that scene. It doesn't out and out tell us. You got to pay attention, and you're like, oh, that means she hasn't told him. It's a nice touch.
You got to wonder if it's Blevins kind of feeling her out for how close they are at this point. Like, is she still with them, or are they getting chummy?
Yeah.
She tells him that Mulder has spoken about the disappearance, and Blevins is going to deny the case based on the evidence that Mulder has given him to open it in the first place. And Scully goes to bat for Mulder in the sense that she says, let me talk to him first.
Which is interesting because I took it to mean that she was basically going to say, let him down gently.
Yeah,
you know,
I agree with that. But I think Mulder kind of steers it in a direction, of course, as he will.
Yeah.
That gets her to go along with it.
So Blevins is not going to get to shut this one down.
No.
He's going to have to suck it up and sign off on that 302 somehow. Maybe Scully's like, no, he's got a case here. And admittedly, as we move into our next scene, Mulder making his case to Scully about why they should go and investigate Lake Okoboji. It's pretty compelling, when you draw the lines between Darlene Morris and, her, was it 1967 picture of the alien craft, and now her daughter is being disappeared. There's some compelling thoughts there.
Yeah, it's happening to the same person. At least the same person's witnessing these events. And he mentions that they called it a weather balloon back in the day, but there wasn't one launched within 700 miles that day.
Yeah. Nice.
So he starts drawing these kind of loose threads of
yep.
evidence, but
nonetheless, and it makes for a really nice scene where she's reading off the file, and then he points to the slide projector, and there's the name. It's like her reaction's like, "Oh my god!" Now, okay, we never really go into why Darlene Morris has such bad luck with aliens. Why Ruby is going to now get targeted by this? Like, why they've come back? Why don't they take Darlene? Why do they take her daughter? Never get into that. And I suppose we don't need to get into that because the motives of aliens are inscrutable. But I feel like this is a case. All right, we just talked about this in a recent episode, where in some cases you get to see over the bad guy's shoulder. You get to watch the episode through their eyes. When it comes to aliens, not so much. We never get real definitive. At least maybe not in the first 5-6 seasons. My memory gets hazy after that. Maybe there is an episode where it's all from the aliens' perspective, but I doubt it. So when it comes to aliens, you don't get that same perspective.
Well, and I think part of that is that's the one thing you do have to keep a mystery for the viewer, because at this point, to kind of feed us little bits of information for 5 years at least, we have to be strong. We have to have some mystery. We talk about often when we get the information and Scully and Mulder end up with nothing. Yeah. So we know what's happened in a particular situation, but they don't. In this case, in the case of the aliens, like you're talking, no one really has the information because it's all in the background. And I think for the sake of the viewer, that's a good thing, because if they answered those questions for the viewer, and gave us that over the shoulder, I think it would take something away from the show. I think
they'd probably stop watching. They'd be like, oh, okay, now I know what the show's all about. I'm going to go watch picket fences.
I don't really care what's about to happen.
Well, they're clearly doing things with their own, mysterious and unknowable motives. They are alien motives, the definition of the word. We cannot possibly know them because they are alien. All right. Well, I think we hammered that one to
We did.
Yard. All right. So we're off to Sioux City, Iowa, another part of BC masquerading as Iowa. And they go visit Darlene Morris, and they meet little Kevin. And there's a nice moment where Mulder is mooning over the pictures on the mantle. And I think this is our first connection that there's going to be a Samantha tie-in here.
Definitely keys in on the youngest picture of Ruby.
Well, he definitely can relate to that sense of loss. That's for sure. And it's so fresh in Darlene. I think he can see that obvious pain, and that's why he's so motivated.
And the scene with Darlene and the agents in the kitchen, she wants Ruby back again. Kevin has also been acting strange, which perks up another plot point.
Understatement, would you say?
If my kid was watching TV and drawing, I'd be a little frightened.
He's taken a real interest in machine learning. I do like in this scene, it sets up the sort of what people feel about Darlene after her having had her experience in 1967, and the way people look at her. And I love her comments to Scully.
It's just like it was before.
Summer of 1967, the Girl Scout troop.
How did you know about that?
Your name's on record at the Center for UFO Studies in Evanston, Illinois.
Really?
Yeah, a pilot for the National Weather Service made a similar sighting over the same area on the same day.
They took her, didn't they, Mr. Mulder? You know, I've told the story so many times now. Go to the newspapers and the police. And every time I tell it, people get this look in their eye. Just like the look that you've got right now.
And I mean, total shout out to the actor who plays that role, Carrie Snodgrass. Unfortunately,
great job.
Died before her time in 2004. She was on the brink. Just a little sidebar on Carrie. She was on the brink of stardom when she left it all to go live with her then boyfriend, little known musician named Neil Young, and pops back into circulation a number of years later in a role like this.
Nice.
But yeah, she definitely, that gravitas is there. It's really quite something.
She's good. I like her in this episode. One thing I did want to point out is that Scully almost immediately tries to steer the ship in a scientific direction, and she says, "Was there a custody battle between you and your husband?" That is the plausible explanation for Ruby's disappearance.
Yep.
And Darlene shoots her down immediately. She knows her ex-husband, and moreover, she's positive as to what happened.
Well, and that is by definition her role in not only the FBI but in the series is to punch holes in the flights of fancy that Mulder is known for. Absolutely. Of course, nobody knows that he's 100% correct about this and every episode that he is in. You would think that they would get, they'd figure this out and go, you know what, just let him run with it. But in this case, early on, of course, it does look bonkers, despite the fact that we, the audience, have seen things that they have not. So I like it that she is taking the pretty direct course of calling it out, saying, was the father involved?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we do get our moment with Kevin now, where we get to see what he is doing. Yeah,
he approaches Kevin in a way that made me think he was going to talk about his father hiding a watch up his ass. I was like, is this Pulp Fiction?
Wow, this is going to take a turn.
Yeah,
all he needed to do was look at that TV and say they're here, and we would be in a different movie. But he's going to get those papers, the ones and zeros, and this is our first call it to Danny. I think Danny at the FBI. Well, he's like they use that device in other shows. When Norm's wife in Cheers is always the offstage voice. So that Danny's Vera. I think that's what we're going to figure out here. But then we go have them speak to the Sioux Shitty.
Sioux Shitty.
You better edit that one out.
Dang. Personal feelings coming out.
Hey, it's no Rockville, Illinois, right? Rockland, whatever. Anyway, so they go to speak to the Sioux City Sheriff. Say that 10 times fast. dismissive of Darlene's claims and indicates that she's got a history of being this way.
This is that first instance of Mulder getting kind of firm. He's like, you just disregarded her story. You didn't investigate it, did you? And he kind of calls the sheriff out immediately. He's got this way about him that's very dismissive of what they're talking about. And he thinks that Darlene's got her stories, and Mulder's not having it.
Yeah, and I gotta say, like, okay, I get that you were gonna take that stance because you're Mulder. But at the same time, like, every average law enforcement officer is going to hear the story of my daughter got abducted by a flying saucer and go, is that so? So how would you like me to proceed? APB? Bolo? You know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, to call him out on, and you didn't look into it, it's like, well, I didn't have your number, Mulder. So I think Scully is very right to call him out saying, why are you antagonizing the sheriff? Like,
well, to be fair, and I agree with what you're saying, but I think that his reasoning, the sheriff's reasoning, that he's pulled her out of too many parked cars because of drinking and whatever with a boyfriend or whatever. It's like, so that equates to what?
Yeah.
That just makes her an awful person? Like, what? The sheriff obviously does not like this family because of Darlene and her stories.
Doesn't like crazy. Yeah. It's definitely offside for a law enforcement officer to imply that Ruby got what she deserved.
Yeah, that struck me the wrong way.
But I mean, we're not supposed to like this guy,
No.
so, you know, fair play. So we're going to see our first mysterious note. The note is on the car. Was it tucked under the windshield wiper across the street? And so they go and they meet a girl in the library. We come to learn her name is Tessa. She's somebody who knew Ruby. And she puts Mulder and Scully onto Greg Randall, Ruby's boyfriend. And that Ruby was pregnant. All sorts of plot bombs get dropped here.
Yes.
Ruby and Greg were going to leave town. Greg's a bartender at the Pennsylvania pub. I mean, literally, she hands them all this information on a silver platter. Like, this is where the plot is going to go. Enjoy.
Right.
I thought it'd be funny if they go around to the aisle and they see Deep Throat there leafing through a book.
Oh, hey.
You know, from... you should really get off this case. You know, you should go and work at a flower shop. I don't know why you're investigating these cases.
You should be like in the background, out of focus with binoculars.
Well, again, if this is an alien abduction case, if this is related to mythology, why isn't Deep Throat or a cigarette smoking man sitting around going, I shouldn't be looking into this. You're going to be getting yourself exposed to danger.
That's a good point.
I mean, I guess they couldn't afford him for this episode or something, but so I withdraw my sidebar and I'll move on. So now we get to go to the Pennsylvania pub, which is pretty well established as your stereotypical biker bar.
Yeah.
Everybody's wearing a leather jacket. They're playing honky tonk.
Donald Gibb,
You
Ogre from Revenge of the Nerds, is the bartender.
Oh my God.
And he's in Bloodsport as the best character.
Yeah. And I like the information we get out of this guy. He's also looking for Greg, who hasn't showed up in 3 weeks and about to be fired.
Yeah, if you find him, you
Mulder
can tell him he's fired.
It's a nice little bit. Do my business for you. But then he sees the flying saucer. And I like how Mulder plays this. Let's talk about this one.
You know, Mulder's spotting that obvious temporary tattoo on this guy's arm. Mulder calling him out. I think he's doing that Mulder thing where he senses them, the way they feel about something, and he plays the and this guy shows him. He's like, hey, I've had encounters, and look, it shows me a disgusting. You should come riding with us sometime.
Yeah, don't what if that part. The ear is cool.
This is why this guy's single.
Hey, we don't know. He might have a wife and kids and 401k. You know, he could be the most affluent guy in all of Baltimore.
Look at me.
So he gets his killer sunburn in the middle of the night. It's a nice touch, and a callback, of course, to what we've seen already as the audience. So I dig it.
Yeah, it calls back to that first scene.
But we're now going to transition to the hotel. What's the name of the hotel? It's like Easy
Stay and Save.
Stay and Save. That's classy. Yeah. Probably, only $19 for the night in 1993.
Oh boy.
But Do you buy the idea of Scully being awoken by the shadowy figures?
If you even pay attention to the music, Mark Snow plays this kind of 25% ominous, 75% playful. It was a weird scene. And before the scene starts, character actor who plays Holtzman plays a couple other characters in later episodes.
Oh, nice. Well, that's his job. That's his official job title. Is
I have given myself this task.
nice.
So
Well, somebody's got to do it. I would like to submit that they have no reason to smash into this armed FBI officer's room in the middle of the night. I do not understand why they could not knock.
you're part of our government, for one. We're all agents here.
Yeah.
Let's handle this, like professionals. No, let's barge in the middle of the night to a woman's room.
And she's an FBI.
armed woman.
Exactly. She's an FBI agent. She's got a gun. And if you do this, like they play it up like she's about to lunge over there and arm herself. This scene could have gone a completely different way if they gave her like 5 more seconds.
Holtzman would be dead.
Yeah, somebody would have some bullets in them, and she'd be like, well, you could have knocked.
They lay this on Mulder and Scully in separate rooms. They get interrogated by these guys because the document, quote unquote, that little boy Kevin has drawn up with the ones and zeros is apparently security issues for the United States.
A defense satellite transmission, as Holtzman calls it.
He is keying in on images on TV and deciphering them into code. And when Mulder and Scully gave it to the FBI to kind of look into, it turned up these are defense things, and that's not good. So now their stance is that an 8-year-old boy who draws pictures is a national security risk.
And this is going to lead into a marvelous tossing of Kevin's room, but I don't want to go there yet because we have a really nice moment where Agent number 2 gets a call and says, we got it. So he's figured out that Scully's clearly just said, well, little boy Kevin told us where, he's the one who's, she folds, right? She gives in. But why shouldn't she? Like, they're all on the same team, quote unquote.
No reason to not tell them, but at the same time, they're handling it very violently.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mulder puts his back up because of the way they're handling it, and because he knows that he can get more information if he plays a little cagey and does his little game. But ultimately, I don't see why he's pissed off at her, because he is kind of when she comes in after them having gotten their way.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. He's very protective, and I think that puzzle piece kind of falls together, and why he's a little bit more combative is he's got these personal parallels going with this case.
Yep. All right, so now we have a very important scene where Men in Black are trashing an 8-year-old boy's room. Do we see the piggy bank being broken, or is it just an afterthought?
It's broken in the scene, I think.
Because I would love a scene where they like smash on the ground and look through the pennies and...
He takes all the silver ones.
Yeah. They just smoke it later. And so they're Darlene and Kevin taken away, with Mulder and Scully looking on and clearly feeling a little guilty that they have brought this on the Morris family.
And who wouldn't? Those two people around, one of whom is a child.
Yeah.
They're putting them in separate cars. How terrifying would that be?
In full view of the neighbors.
There's no class to this at all.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, already with Darlene's daughter having been abducted, she's not in a great place. Probably lives in this town not in a great place because everybody thinks she's crazy. And now she gets arrested and carted off in K cars. It's just like, ugh. Nobody feels good about this except Holtzman.
Right? I'm getting a bump up the ladder.
Yeah. But we have lamenting Mulder and Scully looking around, and Mulder spies the top of the camper van, scorched black, goes to investigate. Yeah. And I like that they don't make a big deal about it, other than it's confirming, it's starting, you can see it's starting to resolve in him. It's starting to figure out what's going on. He's using his superpower. But he hasn't got there yet. And I'm glad, because we're about not halfway through the episode, but in some episodes he's already figured it out in Act 1. But we are still midway through Act 2 and he hasn't figured it out yet.
Yeah, he's still putting the pieces together. He's Bloodhound Mulder right now.
That's right. Well, maybe his superpowers are a little bit under the weather because of, he's got a little Samantha thing on his shoulder. So is it weird that we don't get to meet Danny at the cryptography section? We get to meet Lisa Atsumi instead?
You know, Danny's just being Danny. Hanging out where there's no cameras. But yeah, Atsumi says there's nothing that can be construed as a national security risk. But they are not random drawings at all.
We scanned all 77 pages through the mainframe in Washington.
And none of the information is actionable.
Other than the satellite transmission, nothing can be construed in any way as a national security risk. As far as I know, the boy's being released this afternoon.
So it was just a random set of ones and zeros?
On the contrary, there was nothing random about it.
I don't understand.
All information can be rendered digitally in a series of ones and zeros. When we downloaded the data, we found an amazing range of, well, see for yourself. Da Vinci's Universal Man. A DNA double helix. Oh, there's lots more.
That's from the Brandenburg Concertos.
But they're just fragments. A few notes here, a few notes there. Some lines from the Quran, a Shakespearean sonnet.
Almost like someone's switching channels, huh?
When this happened, of course, the first thing I thought of, oh, well, it's that golden record on Voyager 1. Because that was part of it, right? I think it comes up again later on when Mulder goes to meet with Senator Matheson in an episode that...
Little Green Men.
There you go. I knew I just needed to say 4 words. Oh, Little Green Men. Yeah, the Brandenburg Concerto was the music on that record, I think.
I live for Bach.
I'm surprised that they didn't draw that out right away with Mulder going, oh, wait a second, that was the record that was on Voyager 1. How strange a coincidence.
I kind of like the fact that they didn't draw it because it's like a little Easter egg for the fans.
I'll give you that. Yep.
These 3 things are definitely on.
Well, I don't begin to understand why Kevin has this superpower and what relevance it has other than to get us to our plot point later on.
Yeah, that's my one of my complaints with the episode.
But beyond that, like the fact that it's coming from a satellite ostensibly from the aliens, because like why else would it be there unless the government wants to send this particular information around. I'm going to assume that it is important for our NSA Men in Black types because of the fact that it was encrypted somehow, that this kid was able to decrypt it. That's my guess.
In the NSA's defense is concerning.
Yeah.
Trashing the guy's house.
Yeah.
When it's just a little boy, I don't know.
Egg on their face.
Sucker.
All right, so they get released, Darlene Morris and little Kevin. Obviously, they've figured out that this is not a national security threat. Did they say why they realize it's? Did they say it's statistically? What was the phrase they used?
Just an anomaly.
Anomaly.
Or a statistical aberration.
Yeah.
And this goes to the next scene where Scully and Mulder are in the car. They're talking about it. And Scully's like, okay, I admit that's not much of an explanation.
Yeah.
And Mulder is doing the Mulder thing where he's piecing everything together.
Mm-hmm.
And he calls Kevin a conduit.
The boy is the key, Scully. I know it.
The key to what?
Finding Ruby. Just think about it for a minute. This is a boy who is receiving all kinds of digitized data from a television screen.
Agent Atsumi said it was a statistical aberration.
No.
Okay, I admit it's not much of an explanation, but
I think that Kevin is a conduit of some kind.
A conduit.
A link or a connection to whoever or whatever took Ruby that night.
But how?
If there was an abduction, it's likely that Kevin was touched in some way.
Mulder, I know what you're thinking. I know why this is so important to you. But there is no evidence indicating an abduction.
That's why we're going to Lake Okoboji.
All right. Well, I will draw the line between Mulder and Kevin because clearly he knows that Kevin has tapped into something extraterrestrial. And he's looking for anything that will give him a tool to get closer to his quest to retrieve Samantha. So if he can find Ruby, he might be able to find some link to Samantha. So he needs to find Kevin. He needs to be connected to this family, and obviously he's a little ticked that they can't fix it with Darlene and Ruby. In a way, they have been the author of them getting arrested and causing the situation where Darlene no longer trusts them. It's a nice scene. I think it's well done. It's a saving grace for the fact that a lot of the circumstances underneath it don't make sense. But I dig that we got to this emotional point, that we see Mulder obviously trying to fix it so that he can get back in this game.
And then the campsite. Gorgeous. I would love to be in this place right now.
Yep.
Scully is crouching by the dead campfire, probably questioning her career choices. She says it's so close to the trees that anyone could have come out at night to grab Ruby. This is her kind of reaching. Like, I don't know if I buy that one as a viewer, but she's got to do what she's got to do.
Yeah.
And then Mulder points out the scorched treetops.
Yeah, very nice. In fact, I like it.
And he also finds the fulgurite.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice touch too. But
that's a nice touch.
It did lead me to my next loose plot thread that I was eager to pull on it, and that is, if we have 2,500 degrees worth of heat out there from this event, and it's enough to make Darlene burn her hand on the door handle, why didn't Ruby and Kevin get turned into little, black statues? Yeah.
Yeah, and why is only one little spot on the beach glass?
Yeah, exactly. I am going to solve my own plot hole, and that is to say that if they use their special alien abducting device to abduct Ruby, and Kevin was right there with her, but they decided not to take him, they just wanted to take her, then maybe the sort of space where this event happens, the transporter, for lack of a different word, that's a safe place. It's the eye of the storm, and everything outside of that is going to get wasted. So
it's very possible.
So they took Ruby, but they left Kevin, and this is why he now has this superpower. This is his radioactive spider.
I like it. He was in the cone of abduction.
Yes.
But was left.
A lot better than, hey, we went to the campsite, and do those look like burned human remains? How strange.
This episode's pretty short.
Yeah, exactly. This is no longer a missing persons case. All right.
Then the wolf.
Yeah, oh God, which takes us into the random wolf event. And listen, we got some serious backwoods up here. The real question is, not is it normal for Canadians? Is it normal for Baltimore, Maryland, Lake Okoboji? I have no information on that.
I don't know if Iowa has this kind of animal. I'm not sure. I'm sure it's somewhere.
Sorry, we're not in Baltimore. We're in Sioux City, Iowa. Which even more begs the question, is this normal for Iowa?
My friend lives in Iowa. I've never heard of him talking about a white wolf.
And if we have listeners want to chime in on our comments or Facebook group about the presence of white wolves in Sioux City.
You guys are a bunch of morons.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a nice touch. Clearly, they got a nice deal on white wolf rental, and they go back into the woods, because that's what you do when you see a white wolf, is to chase it
you
back
follow
into the woods. Like, if they're sniffing away at a shallow grave about to have a nice meal, why do they come to the beach? I'm not going to go there. It was a nice scene.
And at the burial site, Mulder is starting to lose it a little bit, willfully disturbing a crime scene, which you can only surmise that it is. It's a mound of rocks, roughly human-sized.
He does say, judging by the smell, it's a shallow grave. So,
an easy question / not important at all. When Scully tries to stop Mulder here, and he says, "I need to know, what if it's her?" That, are we meant to believe he's talking about Samantha or Ruby?
I have it written down here. The exact same question. We are meant to see it ambiguously, that he is ostensibly looking for Ruby, but that there's a part of him which is a little bit off, and maybe he's like, I bring it back to, this is an inroad for him to figure out where Samantha is. That if he can understand what has happened to Ruby, if he can piece together some information there, that is like a step closer to Samantha, even if it's a very, very small step.
I 100% agree with that.
All right, well, they cut to the investigation full swing, so obviously Mulder has done the right thing and stopped messing around with the crime scene, so that's a nice...
Dead man's wallet. Okay.
Listen, as a little cutting together bit, as an editor in the Bay, they probably have 6 takes of him with the wallet, and there's just a moment where he like did an absent-minded rub, and the editor was like, "Oh, that's good. That shows a little intention."
Guy's
But
already
yeah,
an
looking
asshole.
back on it, oh my god, what are you doing?
Yeah, how long has this body been here? It's
That wallet's
disgusting.
got to be a little rank, which tells us more about the sheriff than we needed to know.
Right.
But I do like that Mulder puts on his forensic gloves before taking the wallet. It's a nice little touch.
He's got to do it for this.
Yeah.
There are people here now.
Yeah, that's right. We got to show what the FBI is all about. So we find the note for an appointment with Dr. Jack Fowler,
Yeah.
which is our next little lead in, our next plot point. And I like this. This is a little bit of smart writing to make the connection between Tessa and Greg Randall.
Yeah, we get to see that really cool handwriting comparison.
It's enough to make, and I like that they show don't tell. They're able to
buy it.
Yeah, it's pretty smart. There's a fair amount of it in this episode which works. Sometimes not so much, but this is a nice point.
So they bring Tessa in for questioning.
It all gets reversed. We get to see the undoing of Tessa.
We know that you had the appointment with Dr. Fowler on August 7th. We know that you're the one that's pregnant, not Ruby.
You don't know nothing, do you?
We can prove it, Tessa. And we can prove that Greg was the father.
So what if he was the father?
This is very serious. Do you understand how serious this is? Now, you've waived the right to an attorney. So if you lie to us here today, you could be charged with perjury. You said that he and Ruby were seeing each other.
You said that they were planning to meet at the lake. Is that true?
Look it. I was nowhere near the lake that night, okay?
Sure you were, Tessa. You knew they were meeting, so you sat there and you waited for them. You were angry and you were jealous.
I wasn't.
You sat there and you waited, and when they showed, you killed him first. Isn't that how it went?
No.
You snuck up from behind him and you shot him in the back. Bam! And then you killed Ruby. Bam! What was she doing right before she died, Tessa? Was she pleading for her life? Was she running away?
I didn't kill her.
Where's she buried, Tessa?
I don't know.
You don't know where you buried her, Tessa?
I didn't kill her.
You didn't.
She wasn't even there that night.
Well, how would you know that, Tessa? If you weren't there yourself.
Scully is getting her first glimpse at Mulder really taking it upon himself to, well, number one, this is personal for him.
Mm-hmm.
And she knows it. I don't think Mulder's admitted to it, but he's letting his emotions get to him at this point. I think he's a bit frustrated that this person has lied to them, and he's letting her have it.
I wonder if this is a tie back to his skill as a behavioral analyst, that he's able to look at her and go, if I push her hard, she's going to crack.
Mm-hmm.
My feeling that, yes, I agree. He's letting it, he's allowing himself to get raw because he is raw.
This is a pretty 80s and 90s scene with him kind of playing the bad cop and intimidating the witness. He does a good job. It's a little off key.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if I buy it from Mulder.
Sure,
but
not a lawyer, but I feel like this confession probably wouldn't stand scrutiny. Well, let this be a lesson for all our listeners. Never waive your rights.
Lawyer up immediately.
Yes.
But he continues his kind of mental assault of her brain until she implicates herself by saying Ruby wasn't there that night when Greg was killed.
And that's a nice slip too, right? It's probably the same way of just diverting her into another topic, and that is the answer, which is going to mess her up. I like it. But we established, though, have we, that Tessa has killed Greg Randall? Like that's the
scene.
And shut. Yeah.
Yeah, she implicates herself, and Mulder says, "How would you know if you weren't there yourself?"
Mm-hmm. And I chalk this up again. I come back sometimes to episodes where it doesn't feel like our protagonists have actually done anything. In this case, they have done something. They have found a murderer and brought her to justice.
Yeah.
to her. Listen,
She brought herself to justice, engaging with them in the first place.
well, she thought she could outwit them, with her
Yeah.
fancy note and sending Ruby. I mean, if you think about it, it's a nice little play. Ruby kills Greg because Greg got Ruby pregnant, and if not for that note, which is interesting, so that means that she wrote that note and gave it to Greg
About the pregnancy test she was getting from the doctor.
And so
herself.
She assumes, I guess, that Greg would have tossed that note or didn't keep it.
It was a play. It didn't work out for her.
The wolves, man. The scene that's missing is the conversation with Dr. Jack Fowler. And I think they would... okay, so we got to assume that Greg has Jack Fowler's note in his pocket anyway. So they're going to go talk to Jack Fowler, and they're going to figure out that... Like, they're going to ask who have your patients been in the last... Did you see Ruby? No, I never saw Ruby. Well, Mulder's probably going to say, well, who else did you see? Well, I saw this girl, Tessa. And
yeah.
We get to the point now where Scully is going to convince Mulder that we're done here. It's time to go home. I need to have a bath.
Well, she said, the case is over.
Yeah, and I like this scene. They got a win here. They could piece this together. And I like the scene that they have between them where we get some pivotal scenes of dissension, right? She's basically saying, no, your theories don't add up here when we have this evidence. We have a suspect in custody, confession to a murder, statement which speaks the intent, blah, blah, blah. It's all over. Time to go home. But he can't do that.
We can just assume Ruby's done or dead too.
Yeah.
Why are we choosing to believe her now, Tessa, that is, saying she didn't see Ruby, she wasn't there, but Greg Randall's dead, and she has essentially admitted to killing him.
Yeah. And I believe this is the first time Mulder said, Scully says, Mulder, where are you going? Oh, I've stumped him. I love it.
I'll have to go back and look.
All right. Well, if I'm right. Okay. So we're going to go see Kevin, though. This is where we're going to go next. And Scully rightfully calls him on the idea this is all about Samantha. But he's deflecting, saying it's all about Ruby. And they're going to go do a B&E on the Morris household. To
be fair, the door was open.
They had probable cause somehow.
Well, they came looking for them, and... it was distressing to them to see that the door was open and no one was home.
Fair. That is all you need. Note to listeners, never leave your door open in the presence of an ongoing investigation. Unless you need to get rescued, in which case very much leave your door open.
They encounter the TV, which is on, a teapot, which is on, or the stove, and a bunch of Kevin's drawings laid out in a grid.
Yep. So this, I do like this scene, and
it's cool.
I have a feeling that the whole plot of this episode was built around this scene. That they had this moment in mind, and they worked backwards to go, how do we get here? In the 90s, it was a big deal that you could run a picture through a program, and it would recreate it with alphanumeric characters, because images to download back in the olden times. It would take
10 minutes.
Yeah, it would take a long time to download an image. So this idea of getting an alphanumeric version of that same picture, it was cool, man. It's kind of what you want.
I'm willing to believe that. It's an interesting thing, but it means nothing, unfortunately.
Yeah. I just think that device of doing that was what they then expanded on, going, oh, and what if, our big payoff moment was this meaningless ones and zeros. In fact, when you pull back, when you see the trees for the forest, it is our missing girl, and it is a marvelous moment. And I love Scully is the one to find it.
Yeah. So the agents are back off to the campsite.
Yep. And of course, this is the last bit of the plot that Mulder has figured out, and takes the leap that they're off to Lake Okoboji. And he relates his fantasy that his sister would be returned every time he comes back into the room. I
like this scene.
It's a nice moment.
Yeah.
I like that it's a little segue adjacent, if you could say that. It's not directly related to their current plight, but it is. It says more about him, obviously.
Him relenting, because Scully has mentioned it twice now that, is this about Samantha?
Yeah.
Are your personal feelings clouding your judgment? So he kind of, in this scene, unprovoked, he just goes, I've been walking into this room with my eyes closed, hoping to see Samantha again every day. He's relenting because he realizes that he's been letting his emotions get to him, but he's also telling her this is why this is so important. And I wholeheartedly believe she was abducted.
I like to think that the unspoken bit of business here is the reason that he is relentlessly going to the Kokoboji is because he knows how Darlene feels, and if he can retrieve Ruby and get more information about where she went, that's a clue that brings him closer to Samantha. So it's not totally selfless. He does empathize with the victim, and he is going to go and use his power when he can help somebody, who's in that strife.
Mm-hmm.
So they get there, they find the camper van, it's empty, they follow the trailhead, they hear Darlene, they split up because you can't have them together. Just that won't do.
But this time Scully gets the info.
Yes.
They have the light behind the trees. Oh my god, it's a UFO, there's rumbling. Oh, nope. It's the biker gang.
Yeah, and they've used that light in the distance bait and switch before. I think the last time we saw that was...
First up.
Yeah, that's right, with the sheriff's weird-ass
Papa
truck
Miles.
that makes the alien spaceship noises.
Unhealthy truck.
But it's cool, except, come on, you don't see a kid in the field? And, I mean, it really had that sense that this kid's about to get run over.
Not one of them stops.
Yeah, well, they're bad people, those bikers. But it all happens at once. Kevin's saying Ruby's back, and we have that moment of... It is a nice moment where Mulder and Kevin are having that talk of him saying, I know how much you want to believe it, but you really feel him projecting there, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But then Scully screaming for Mulder in the distance.
Mulder!
We have...
That was an actual audio clip.
You drop that in there, eh? That's good.
Okay, she's breathing. Why are you doing...
Did she say she's breathing? Because she said she's unconscious.
She says she's alive. She obviously has a pulse, right? So why are you doing chest compression? I could be wrong, and I'm very willing to admit that.
I'm really looking forward to the chat jumping all up and down and saying that she did the exact perfect thing there.
I don't believe it. I don't know.
Maybe she was just breathing, and she screamed out because she stopped breathing, and this is why she's administering CPR, and she hasn't caught up with the plot yet herself.
I'm hopeful the listeners correct me.
All right, so listen, let's let the medical professionals sort this out, because we're back at the Sioux City Hospital. Clearly, they're not stressed out anymore, so a real doctor has come in and fixed Ruby. And we have Mulder and Scully going over Ruby's chart, and Mulder drops some of the best medical technobabble I've ever heard.
Yeah, there's so many words.
I have to assume that regular admitting does not look for, they don't do a test to determine electrolyte abnormalities or lymphocyte populations or releases of glucocorticoids.
Yeah. What?
Maybe Mulder ordered those tests because he knew.
I could see him barking orders at a doctor's.
Could have been solved by them saying, how about those tests I ordered for the glucocorticoids? And Scully would say, yeah, I still don't know why you spent $3,500 on that test. The department's never going to reimburse your credit card.
We have to pay for this.
All right. I will not pull on that thread too hard because that way lies chaos. But yes, he's on the trail that she was abducted by aliens and then returned. Kevin comes over, lets him speak to Ruby. I think we can all agree that Scully's red pantsuit for the finale is amazing.
Choice.
It's a choice.
She picks it up towards the end of 3.
No, they definitely make some brave choices there. It is a bright suit, but so that scene, I do quite enjoy Ruby saying, they told me not to say, they told me not to tell. And it is so in line with the way the plot is going to go in future episodes that this is, I think, the germ that is going to, or I guess the seed that is going to germinate into the mythology arc of they telling me not to tell. And I like that she sticks to it. It's like, no, I'm back now and I'm alive. I'm going to play ball.
And Mulder is upset. She doesn't want them talking to her.
Yeah.
He's telling both, Ruby and her mom, Darlene, that she should be encouraged to talk about this. And Darlene says, like me, I've been chastised my whole life for my stories, and he can't handle this. He storms off. He's not happy that, one, he can't get a story from Ruby or a statement, and two, that Darlene has kind of flipped on him. It's just one more wall in his life.
I think the reason it works, though, is because it is so believable. And again, I think
it's a mom protecting her daughter.
Yeah, and hats off to the performance, because I think a lesser actor, it wouldn't have conveyed quite as well, but she has just got that hard living look and that incredibly strong backbone which says this wall will never be broken. But I think it does speak so well to the setup that they give in that character. She has been a pariah for telling what she thinks is the truth and being made a social pariah because of it. And her saying, all of my life I've been ridiculed for speaking my mind, and I don't want that for her. It's so spot on, and I like that it ends that way. And I think the reason it is bittersweet is because we have had this victory. They have retrieved Ruby. Ultimately by doing nothing. But they have solved the mystery. Ruby has come back, but even though they won, he's lost because he is not going to get his answers through this particular means.
Yep, and that leads us into the final shot, the final scene, I should say.
Yeah,
this is where the emotion ramps up for the very end of the episode.
Yeah,
Scully listening to Mulder's regression tape while she's looking at Samantha's file.
Yeah,
and it's intercut with a scene of Mulder for the one and only time he's in a church.
Yeah.
And he's holding a picture of his sister when they were young, and he's crying. I'll save this for my final thoughts, but wow.
Well, Mike, would you like to give us your final thoughts on on Conduit?
Yeah, we've said a couple things already. This is an episode, to me, that's important to giving the viewer and Scully that look into the depths that Mulder will go to get those answers. It's no surprise that it's an episode where a young woman is abducted, just like his sister, and there's a little brother. So there's that tie-in, Samantha and Mulder, and then Kevin and Ruby. Now, ultimately, there is a safe return in this one, and it's supposed to give Mulder hope, but at the same time, he's left with nothing. And it's powerful because he ends the episode in such a state like we've never seen him before. He's actually weeping over his sister and his parallels that he's drawn to her with this case. And yeah, he feels in this scene, in my interpretation, is because of, like what we've said earlier, they haven't been responsible for anything, like you said, Andrew. He probably feels useless in this type of situation where he knows that even in finding Ruby, if he was given the answers and all his questions were answered about whether or not aliens exist and where they went, he still can't do anything to take or to get his sister back. So even if he had those answers, he could still do nothing about it. And there's no guarantee she's ever going to come back like Ruby did. Mm-hmm. So I think that gives this church scene a little bit more weight to it. I don't know. I just really like the scene. He is just a passenger in this case, and in his sister's case, he can do nothing but find out what happened. And even if he finds it out, there's nothing he can do to bring her back. He has no one to contact to bring his sister back.
Yeah.
So he feels that kind of emptiness and uselessness at the end of this episode.
I think that he's looking for answers. Getting his sister back is obviously the ultimate goal, but I think he also, because you see this in other cases, he's not so much interested in just solving it, but he wants to know why things happen. So I think part of him just wants to know why people are being abducted. Why was his sister abducted? And if he can find that out, then maybe he can get his sister back. Because a lot of time has passed with his sister being gone. You got to imagine at some point he's felt like she's never coming back, and maybe I will find a way to bring her back, but so much time has passed, he's probably contemplated the idea that she is not coming back. I think that they do have another case where they have a win. Like they found out Tessa is a murderer of Greg Randall, so like chalk that one up. It wasn't their direct imperative, but
it was kind of solved by proxy.
Yeah, but it might not have been without their intervention. So I will say that it's nice to see them doing things as opposed to them being passengers on the plot.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is one of those cases where they are figuring it. The writers and the producers are figuring out where the show is going to go, and they obviously wanted to tell an interesting story about abduction, but not one which will explain why things are happening the way they are, because there's just a lot of questions which don't really fit in with the mythology arc that goes forward. Like,
right.
So, and I'm okay to excuse that because it is early on, and they are figuring out where the plot's going to go. Plot could have gone a dozen different ways. And I like how they keep us in the dark on this point, because I feel like they tantalize us a bit with the very last line of him saying, "I believe she's going to be okay." And of course the iconic him saying, "I want to believe." It is obviously a feather in their cap as producers and editors that they are going to give us that little nugget at the end.
Yeah. I've actually got a user comment here if we want to segue into that.
I think it is the ideal time.
Matt Conrad, wonderful chap. Probably my favorite part is when Mulder is crying in the church at the end of Conduit. It's such a powerful scene with his regression recording playing over the top. You see a man broken in a moment of desperation, reaching for anything to help him find answers to the truth he seeks. And he utters those famous words, "I want to believe." Mm-hmm. Wonderful comment, and I think that succinctly puts into an envelope everything we've just said.
Even if he never goes back to the church again. Well, at least the church didn't go up in flames and he suddenly has to deal with his fear of fire at the same time.
That's the episode tonight, guys. Thank you very much for listening.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, please rate and review on your podcast app of choice. Andrew and I would be eternally grateful to you fine people for helping us expand and get the word out. Also, we've got a killer group on Facebook. Feel free to join in on the discussion at facebook.com/groups/thisisnothappeningpod and become an official member of the syndicate. We do polls and we have questions for every episode to give you guys the opportunity to chime in and possibly let your voice be heard on our recordings. And please join us on our new Twitter at tinhxfilespod, no dash, to stay up to date on everything, moment to moment. Thank you, and remember, don't stop swimming. It's that time, everyone, the Magus Media Production sales pitch. Please check out our homepage at magusmediaproductions.net so you can stay up to date on all of our shows. Check out our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Magus Media Productions, both of which have our Discord link on it, where you can join us for live shows as we record them for future release. At Magus Media Prods on X, our Patreon, patreon.com/MagusMedia, where a $5 donation will help us keep the lights on and bringing you new content, and you get some stickers. Thank you for your consideration and support.